Coming up, a photographer documents the elders of her tribe. Star Wars in the Navajo language. Plus, there's a new Miss Indian world. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Gotwatsi Hopa. Thank you for joining us. We start in Washington, D.C., where the Interior and Justice Departments are taking steps to address missing and murdered Native people. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland recognized this National Day of Awareness at a virtual event on Thursday. The online event also highlighted the Not Invisible Act Commission. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco discussed the importance of the Commission's efforts to address the crisis.
Today marks a major milestone in those efforts as we take the next step in launching our joint commission under the Not Invisible Act. The mission is an essential one to reduce violence against American Indians and Alaska Natives. Today, you'll hear from several tribal leaders about how important the commission is to that work.
The commission is supported by a far-reaching investigative authority. It will create recommendations for the Secretary and Attorney General. This week, the Indian Health Service Office of Urban Indian Health Programs awarded $8.3 million in grants. The 4-in-1 grant program is funding 32 urban Indian organizations. These grants will make health services more accessible for American Indians and Alaska Natives living in urban areas. Money will also go to support the operations at urban healthcare facilities. The areas of support include disease prevention, immunization, substance use, and mental health. Speaking to the needs this grant meets, IHS Acting Director Elizabeth Fowler says in part, the program provides funding to urban Indian organizations to ensure comprehensive, culturally appropriate healthcare services are available and accessible for the urban Indian population. The Biden administration is proposing $113 million in its budget to expand the urban Indian health program in 2023. After 2 weeks, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations is still waiting for an investigation it called for. Questions still remain for a Saskatoon hospital where a 7-month-old First Nations boy suffered a severe injury. APTN's Leanne Sanders has more.
Baby Tobias Souze was born prematurely last September 1st and has been in the hospital since. His mother, Tila Souze, says he was happy and doing well when she visited him on April 4th. When she returned to visit him a few days later, she found her baby in a full leg cast, and the head nurse couldn't tell her what happened.
And then when I walked in, his leg was covered up. I walked in and I uncovered him to pick him up, just to find out he had a cast on, like a whole leg cast, and it scared me. She just came in and told me that, informed me that early that morning they noticed his leg he was in pain because of his leg, and then they took him down for x-rays just to find out that his femur bone was broken, and they told me it was a slight break.
Now the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations is calling for a full, formal, independent investigation with an FSIN-appointed health official working alongside. FSIN Vice Chief David Pratt says they want to determine exactly what took place.
This can't be covered up. Too often, we've been as First Nations people, we're dealing where incidents happen within the healthcare system as well as within the justice system, and they're swept under the rug. And people look at it, well, it's just another Indian, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter.
A statement from the Saskatchewan Health Authority reads, "We are very sorry to hear about the concerns being raised by this family and are working to ensure conversations with family and their supports formal safety event processes and appropriate medical investigations are completed. It goes on to say reviews may include case conferences with the family and staff and a formal review process. Tila Suze just wants to know what happened to her baby.
I asked how that happened. They said they don't know. They won't give me an answer.
Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
This year, the crown for Miss North Dakota will be worn by an Indigenous woman. Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians, Sanoa LaRock, won the title last weekend. LaRock was one of 26 women who participated in the statewide pageant. The Harvard graduate says she plans to set an example for disadvantaged youth during her reign. 3 years ago, she made a vow to bring the crown home to Turtle Mountain, and now it has finally happened. Following her win, the new Miss North Dakota took to social media to acknowledge her success and Indigenous identity. LaRock now advances to the internationally televised Miss Universe 2022 competition. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, May the 4th be with you. Star Wars meets the Navajo language, and a Lakota woman photographs her community. But first, meet Miss Indian World. Stay with us. Tashina Redhawk was crowned Miss Indian World last weekend at the Gathering of Nations powwow in Albuquerque. The 18-year-old Sikanju Lakota woman competed with 23 contestants for the title that started in 1984.
Our new Miss Indian World, Tashina Redhawk.
I competed for my Miss Teen Rosebud title just this past summer. And it was actually my queen coordinator that was like, you should apply for Miss Indian World. In fact, she was first runner-up back in her year. And I was like, you know what? Like, that would be amazing. Like, what an opportunity to be able to represent yourself, your family, your tribe, your First Nations people. So I was like, I'll do it. I'll do it. So after I submitted my application, I started studying, watching all the old YouTube videos of past presentations and past stage 49 questions, and went to all the elders of my community and said, what would you like me to represent you as? What do I need to know as a Sicangu Lakota woman to go and prepare myself and to really represent my people? And so that, just putting that all together, it was exhilarating to be through the contest, but all the prepping, this was something I decided almost very last minute. It wasn't something I watched as a little girl, but I'm definitely extremely glad that I did do it. So I basically went through a few different steps, a few components that really grew me as a Lakota. One of those was I sang my great-grandmother, Viola Good Voice's song, and it kind of grounded me and brought me together to prepare me for the rest of my presentation. So I talked about Wichagalata singing, which is women's backup singing, which is huge for our people. Next, I went to what it means to sha'ichia, to adorn someone. Because when you love someone, you decorate them, you show them off. And so I beaded my niece's fully beaded buckskin junior girls northern traditional top, and that was on stage with me. And then next, I went into how my elders taught me how to hunt and process deer, and I was able to shoot one live arrow straight across the stage.
Redhawk describes her goals for the year as Miss Indian World.
And I'm really passionate about my youth. Growing up, I had a great amount of support from my community, my parents, my friends. So I really want to provide that support and be the role model for our upcoming Indigenous youth, because they are intelligent. They're so creative. The thoughts they come up with are amazing for whatever they're passionate about. So I really want to fill my role on inspiring our next generations to be our next leaders, and that I want to show them how important their cultural identity is and how strong they can be, how their ancestors' blood are in their veins, and that they have that support and strength to carry them to pursue whatever they want in life. So for this following year, I really want to inspire our youth and let them know they can be right where I am. If they want to be their tribal president, they want to be the United States president, that they can go achieve their goals. So this upcoming year, I'm really excited to be there for our youth.
This week marked the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Emily Reisling has been missing since October of 2021 in California. Her family and friends refuse to give up hope. The disappearance of the 33-year-old Hoopa Valley citizen is the latest in the alarming string of cases involving Indigenous people. ICT producer and correspondent Vincent Moniz reports.
Last weekend, tribal and local authorities, along with volunteers from a Missing Persons Foundation, searched the Yurok Reservation in remote Northern California. The search began last Friday morning and ended Sunday night. It involved more than 30 people, several boats, and 10 cadaver dogs. They were looking for Mary Risling's 33-year-old daughter, Emily. She's been missing since October of 2021.
That's Emily. Yeah, this is Emily. There's a lot of Emily around here right now. It's an eagle feathers. This is all like beaded. We have that beaded for her. It's really cute.
Her case was one of 5 instances since 2020 where Indigenous women went missing or were killed between San Francisco and Oregon. In response, the Yurok tribe declared a state of emergency around missing and murdered Indigenous women. The search covered a massive area, about half the nation's tribal territory, and also parts of the Klamath River and its banks. Sadly, this most recent search did not return one of the many missing Indigenous women back into the arms of their worried relatives.
We had so much fun that day. There's a great picture of her and me from that day, but I don't know where that picture is.
In Bismarck, North Dakota, this is Vincent Moniz for ICT News.
A couple of weeks ago, ICT interviewed Fred Dubray about his bison herd and its infection with Mycoplasma bovis. Dubray's story was also documented in the New York Times, and that story included photographs by Don LeBeau.
Fred Dubray's ranch is just about a 45-minute drive from where I'm at on the Cheyenne River Lakota Nation, and I was offered the assignment, and of course, I accepted it, and when I arrived, I read up on the story, and I was just immediately saddened to hear because the Buffalo Nation are our relatives as Lakota people, and so it was important for me to be there. It was inspiring and very saddening. I'm well aware of the relationship that relative Fred Dubray holds with our Buffalo Nation, so spending the day with him out there and driving through the range and seeing the kinship was really important to me. It's definitely a learning moment and mostly saddening to see that sickness taking over. And I promised Fred that I would like to come back this summer so I can just be present and see the kinship, because we talked about so many things. We talked about the land, we talked about other animal relatives and the landscape. So I'm looking forward to going back, and I'm also looking forward to hopefully finding a solution and some healing.
Documenting the people's lives and language of the Cheyenne River people is important to LeBeau.
I have been working on a Cheyenne River Lakota language speakers project here in my community on Cheyenne River in South Dakota. And I started in 2016, and COVID paused me, but I'm back at it. And I have set aside majority of my other work specifically for this project. And I feel such an honor and such hope when I meet with all of the fluent Lakota language speakers in our community. You think you know your community, right? You think because you go around and you say hi to everybody and you visit. Well, there's a deeper level when you get to do these projects with them, because you get to sit with them for hours. You get to connect on the phone. You get the honor of taking their portrait and doing an interview. And that is the best feeling for me, because not only are they talking about our Lakota language, they're offering cultural stories, and I have the privilege and honor and responsibility of caring for that knowledge and dispersing it in a way that is appropriate and respectful to our community. So that project will continue over the next couple of years. I have a very, I want to say, for me, it feels like a robust database of Lakota language speakers, but it's very, very small when you look at it in a bigger picture. But this year, I will be working with and have been working with about 20 fluent Lakota language speakers or second language learners, and I'll have an exhibit this fall, and I'm really excited about it. And then I'll continue into next year and then the following year. So.
St. Mary's Catholic Boarding School has historic ties to ICT's Marionette Pember. The school once operated on the Bad River Ojibwe Reservation in Wisconsin. Her mother went to school there. Marionette Pember shares this story.
I recently traveled to the mother house of the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration, the order of Catholic nuns who taught at St. Mary's Indian Boarding School on the Bad River Reservation in Wisconsin, where my mother attended school in the 30s and 1940s. Located in La Crosse, Wisconsin, the order's sprawling buildings include a convent, living space and nursing home for sisters, office spaces, archives, museum, and chapel. All are connected by a series of underground tunnels. The sisters gave me a tour of their properties and magnificent chapel. This inlay is mother of pearl.
Mother of pearl, and this is all marble. The altars are marble. Carrara marble from Italy.
And you said you have no idea of the cost.
We have no idea the total cost of the chapel, which is quite a mystery.
St. Mary's School closed in 1969, but like many Catholic orders that operated Indian boarding schools, the sisters have embarked on a campaign to examine this work and create a truth and healing process for harm they committed against Indigenous peoples. The sisters are digitizing their boarding school archives and making them available to the Bad River tribe.
So tell me a little bit about, what the order is doing regarding its history at the St. Mary's Indian Boarding School in Odana on the Bad River Reservation, which I understand is the only Indian boarding school that the sisters taught at. Is that correct?
That's correct. We administered it from 1883 to 1969. And right now, I would say we're in a big learning curve of what the history is. We're re-looking at the history.
I have to say, there has been a lot of conversating. And wonders how long is this got to go on? I mean, how many, it sounds so vague and open-ended, and it doesn't really sound like, it's all this sort of internal stuff that's going on, framed in this fearfulness of not opening these institutions, not opening themselves up to possible, perhaps financial risk, that's really kind of what it seems to be to me, as a person looking in. So it doesn't seem to be moving very quickly. And that I think a lot of people find that really disappointing.
People who have been living their entire lives in this reality, their perspective is understandably different than people who are just saying after 2 years, wait a minute, there's a problem here? And you're right, it's been a long time in coming. Mary, this is particularly for you. This is personal, because the story of your mother and your grandmother, as you've shared it with the world, you've also shared it with me. I've prayed about your mom. I've prayed about your grandma. I've prayed about you. And I want you to know that I have heard the pain. I can't comprehend it, but I've heard it. I believe it. And as the president of the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration, I am sorry. I apologize for what those experiences and what our school has done in your family. I am sorry. And know that I will continue to pray, because I think that this conversation right now is part of a bigger picture that neither one of us knows, who's holding it.
We bless you in the name of the Lord.
Miigwech, thank you. The sisters' apology and blessings were unexpected, but represent an important first start towards healing. True reconciliation, however, demands action from all Catholic Indian boarding school entities. That action includes opening all church archives to survivors and their families. Surely, after all this time, Native peoples and all Americans deserve to know the truth. Marionette Pember in La Crosse, Wisconsin, for ICT.
May the 4th be with you was spoken all over the country by Star Wars fans this week. It has special meaning for a Dene family that worked for years to translate the iconic movie into the Navajo language. Manuelito Wheeler explains.
My wife is a Navajo language teacher, amongst other things. She also has a PhD in English literature. So with that combination, the conversations that happen between us, about our language, about our culture, and then the discussion about, how can we get more people engaged with the Navajo language? And so then that's when we started talking about what would happen if there was a movie dubbed in Navajo. And then, I've always been, affectionate of Star Wars and the Star Wars universe. And so then that's when I said, what if we did a Star Wars movie, And this was like in the 1990s where I ordered a script, and then I thought it was going to take days for her to do just like 3 to 5 pages. I thought I was going to get it back the next day, but she came back in like 15 minutes and she's like, here's what you asked me to transcribe, translate. And I'm like, oh man, this can work. So, it started then, and then many years of reaching out to Lucasfilm to ask them how we could do this.
At last, the Wheeler family got to see the final product.
We screened it at one of the studios. I'm not trying to act like some movie mogul. I'm just like a normal guy born and raised on the res who just happened to have the fortunate chance to screen this in LA. And so we went over there to LA, and we went to one of their screening rooms, and it was just like this surreal experience. You're sitting in this small theater, and then the movie comes up, and and the crawl is in Navajo. Even the part where it says "a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away," that came up, and it was in the Navajo language. And man, I mean, it's giving me chills, right now thinking about it. But it was just really powerful. It was a little emotional, to realize that this thing that we thought about a long time ago, it was becoming a reality. And then, the other thing I definitely want to say is it just wasn't me. It just wasn't my wife. There were so many people, both on the Navajo Nation side and on Lucasfilm side, that really, really helped make this happen.
The translation project for Wheeler was important for many reasons.
Number one, it's bringing awareness to our native languages, not just Navajo language. They're bringing awareness to all native languages and the situations they're in. And that situation is like the native languages are in trouble. If we don't do anything consciously right now, we're going to lose our language. And there are many tribes throughout our own country that their languages have gone extinct. And I think that's just a tremendous tragedy that the original inhabitants of this continent, for those languages to be gone. And when those languages go, it really impacts the culture. And so, that's why it's important. So they're fun, but they also bring awareness to a serious situation for Native people.
Star Wars in the Navajo language is available on Disney+, and folks in Phoenix even got to see it at a drive-in theater on May the 4th. A California tribe is the first Indigenous nation to own and operate a casino in the gambling capital of the world, Las Vegas. This effort is being made with Native values at the forefront. Stuart Huntington reports.
There was glitz, excitement, and a big rush to join a big party. But there was also a keen sense of the overall journey and the road ahead.
One of the top values that we have as tribal people is giving back to others, and that's regardless of location. Whether we're on or off the reservation, we're going to carry those values with us.
Last year, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians bought the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas for $650 million. The nearly 1,400-room complex remained closed since Nevada shuttered all resorts during the pandemic. The reopening was hailed as a milestone for Native American economic development.
It's absolutely phenomenal. We believe that, you know, we've gone through so many struggles in our lifetime, in our prehistory, that at this time, it's time for us to move forward in the development of this nation.
Casas's great-great-grandfather, Santos Manuel, led fewer than 30 of his people to safety after California militia forces attacked in 1866. The band endured poverty for generations, but has since turned a one-room bingo hall in 1986 into a thriving, diversified economic engine built on Native values.
We benefited from the kind-heartedness of others when we had very little, and it built us into these kind-hearted, warm-hearted people that just want to give back.
In Las Vegas, that meant helping local nonprofits before and during reopening ceremonies, and remembering other Native communities.
We survived everything that came up against us, and we are still here today. And this proves it to every tribe that is capable of doing exactly what we do.
In Las Vegas, Stuart Huntington, ICT.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.